A couple things just as we get started. One, I reread through my notes, and the first 10 or 15 minutes of this talk are a bit heavy. Especially after playing board games. So I apologize for that in advance, but wanted to let you know in advance that about 10 or 15 minutes in, I'm going to take a turn, and my intention is very much to end on a much more hopeful note than the first 10 minutes or so of this talk. The other thing I wanted to say is that this talk is very much kind of framed through the lens of my personal experience of life, and that's not going to be the same for all of us. What I've experienced is not going to line up one-to-one to what you've experienced. My hope is that there's enough overlap, at least in parts, that there's going to be something worthwhile that we each can take, at least in terms of reflection and discussion afterwards. So, our question for tonight, is true happiness possible? Another way to get at the same idea, should we have great expectations for life? Should we believe that dreams come true? I hope so. I used to think so. I can remember when I was about 8 years old, my birthday was coming up, and I made this agreement with my dad that he would build a few steps up this massive tree in our backyard. And I made this pact with him that every year on my birthday, he would add 2 or 3 steps to this ladder up this massive tree. And I can remember just having this vision for what it would be, and that many years from now, I'd be able to climb up like hundreds of feet into the air and look out over the entire neighborhood. I thought it was so cool. When I was young, I had these great dreams for the things that I would do, for the person that I would become. Nothing seemed out of reach. I can remember as a kid thinking that maybe I could fly. And I don't mean in an airplane. I can remember going into the backyard and sort of just standing there and closing my eyes and thinking that maybe if I just tried hard enough, I'd open my eyes and find myself slightly off the ground. Just me? Anybody else do that? All right, there's a couple. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate that. Not leave me on my own. I remember thinking that I would never die. I can remember kind of trying to conceive of coming to the end of my life and stopping breathing and just not being able to conceive of it. I remember believing I'd fall in perfect love, a love that would never fade. Remember believing I'd become a professional athlete, go on awesome adventures, write amazing books, change the world, make a real difference. And I wonder if some of that sounds familiar. Or if not specifically my weird dreams, what were your dreams as a child? What were your expectations for life? What were they 10 years ago? What were they 5 years ago? What are they today? And how have they changed? Many people start out with extraordinary dreams, but by the time they become adults, they've ceased to dream like children. We learn to set our expectations low, to bring the bar down closer to where we already are. And in a lot of ways, that makes perfect sense. We don't want to be dreamers, hopeless romantics, naive idealists. We were ignorant when we were children. Now we understand the harsh realities of life. Now we understand how often expectations are unmet and the hurt that brings. Now we've experienced failure. We haven't gotten the grades that we hoped to get. We're not on the trajectory that we expected to be on. We've had relationships end badly. We've had parents divorce. We've known anxiety and depression. We've had friends who have committed suicide. Is true happiness possible? If I'm honest, in natural terms, I'm not sure it looks that promising for 2 reasons. One, what's outside of us is not what we've dreamed of. And second, I think what's inside of us is not what we've dreamed of. As a child, I had this innate sense that the outside world was going to be good to me, that the outside world was going to be kind to me, that every year things were going to get better and better, and I was going to climb higher and higher up that tree in the backyard. And it made sense. Every year I was getting faster, every year I was getting stronger, Every year I was getting smarter, more intelligent. But somehow, without even realizing it, childhood turned into young adulthood. And I just got busy trying to keep up with everything that everybody told me I was supposed to be doing, and I completely forgot about those steps in the backyard. In fact, I can remember a time in my teenage years where I sort of saw them way back there in the backyard, and I thought, oh, I'd forgotten about those. And I went out there and tried to have a climb for old time's sake, and the beams were weak and rotted. I couldn't even climb back to the step that I had gotten to as an 8-year-old. We want to believe that the world is on our side, that the world's going to be kind to us, that things are going to get better and better, that we're going to get opportunities to climb higher and higher each year. We try to convince ourselves, I think, with hopeful phrases. Phrases like, the world is your oyster, the sky is the limit. The only thing to fear is fear itself. You can do anything if you just put your mind to it. Don't worry, things will get better. They're such nice phrases. But here's the thing. They're all lies. I mean, they're all simply false. There's so many things to fear in this world other than fear itself. Disease, abuse, betrayal, freak accidents, poverty, failure. For many millions of people in this world, poverty is the limit, or slavery is the limit. And it doesn't look like things are going to get better. I'm only 36 years old, and already so much of what I looked forward to as a child, so many of those dreams that I was so excited about, they're gone, and they're lost for good. I'm never going to look better. I'm never going to run faster. I'm never going to be stronger. My body already has titanium screws in its shoulder and in its knee, and torn ligaments in its ankles, and my body's just going to get weaker and weaker over time until one day it stops working altogether. Now, I have relationships that I find meaning in and great expectations in, my marriage, for instance. But then again, to think about it from the other side, how much confidence can I really have at 36 years of age in my marriage when more than 50% of marriages don't succeed? More marriages end in divorce than don't. Now, of course, everyone would like to think we'll be different. My wife Jo and I would like to think that we'll be different, but surely most of the people who wound up with marriages that didn't last, they thought that they were going to be different as well. And even if my wife Jo and I do last in our marriage still isn't going to end well, because it's ultimately going to end when one of us dies. I think it's amazing how little we tend to think about death. One survey that I saw had death down as the fifth greatest fear. I think this was for Americans. Number one was public speaking. So most people think it's more terrifying to do what I'm doing right now than to die. And I don't know, perhaps it's because we don't want to face the reality of death. I think that we would think about it all the time if we had a terminal disease. But isn't that what every single one of us has? Our bodies are all slowly dying. And that's only if we get lucky. One unintentional yank of the steering wheel, and that could be it. Forgetting to look both ways on our way home, that could be the end. I told some of you who were here last night that my cousin Charles, he died because he went to dinner with my Aunt Regina and started choking on a piece of chicken, and a minute later he stopped breathing, and that was it. I mean, that's how fragile our bodies are. Statistically, there's a good chance that actually more than one of us in this room won't make it to the age of probably 35. I know that's heavy, and I don't mean to be overly heavy here, but I just want to set kind of some of the reality of the situation that we're in, and we don't spend time actually thinking about before I turn a corner and suggest that I think that there's much more that we can hope for. You know, we hear about someone dying painlessly and peacefully in their sleep, and we sort of hope for a good end like that. But I don't know that there's a good end. You know, you hear about the person that dies peacefully, painlessly in their sleep. You don't hear about the spouse that finds them the next morning. You know, somebody's going to be in pain. It might be us as we head towards that end. It might be our loved ones as they deal with it. What about what's inside of us? Maybe what's outside of us is challenging, but maybe despite our circumstances, we can live good lives. We can make good decisions on the inside. And maybe that's where our hope should come from. I think if we're honest, what's in our hearts, and I think there's good in our hearts. I think every one of us was created by God, and there's goodness in us. But I think if we're honest, I think there's as much to feel bad about as there is to feel good about when we take an honest look inside of us as well. If you're not convinced of this, and you want to see for yourself, there's one absolutely certain way to be able to do that, and that's to get married. In marriage, there's someone who's always watching you. There's someone who knows you even better than you know yourself. And over time, you let your guard down. I never realized how different I am when no one is looking. Burping, farting, drinking out of the bottle, peeing in the shower. Did I say that one out loud? Don't look at me like that. 75% of poll takers. First time I told someone that statistic, they said maybe in New Jersey. Picking my nose, and most of you are nose pickers as well. 91% of people pick their nose, and over half do so multiple times a day. So if you shook the hands of the person on your right and your left at the beginning of this talk, there's a very good chance at least one of them owes you an apology. I'll bet you can guess which one. It's amazing how much of what I do I used to not even notice I do, and I would never be comfortable with anybody else knowing about or seeing. And the Bible talks about this as being double-minded. We tend to be one person in the light, one person in public. We tend to sometimes be a different person in the dark. And if I'm honest, the things that I'm actually ashamed of, it's not the burping or the drinking out of the bottle, but it is the way that I often think of people. It is often the way that I say things behind people's backs, that I know there's not love and that there is selfishness in my heart, that I want to do so much better than the next person. I desire my goodness over their goodness. Maybe it's the things that we spend our time looking at on the internet that we're not so proud of. Maybe it's the ways that we spend our money without ever maybe giving a thought to how else that money could be used and whether there are people who need it for really good reasons. When I spoke last night, I shared with some of you that there was a guy who as a teenager I wasn't very nice to, and I would take opportunities to put him down, and that I found out a few years ago that he had taken his life, that he had committed suicide. Made me realize how often I'm so blind to the selfishness in my heart. And not only to the selfishness in my heart, but to the consequences of that selfishness for others. What if I saw the long-term effects of all of my unkindness, of all of the selfishness in my heart over the years? You know, when I do things wrong, my instinct is to find someone who's done something worse. I find somebody, you know, on the 6 o'clock news or somebody down the street who's done something worse than me, and then I think, you know, sin, that bad stuff in our hearts, that's his problem. That's not my problem. Even now, you know, at 36, I can look back on some of the things that I used to do that, you know, with God's help in my life, I don't do anymore. And I can look back on those things and say, you know, that was really bad. Things that at the time I thought no big deal. Probably because nobody could see that I was doing it. And now I look back and say, no, there was something really wrong about that. Well, I've made like this much progress. Imagine how far along this trajectory of becoming the people that we're supposed to be, a person who is genuinely good. Imagine how far along that trajectory God is. Imagine what things would look like from his perspective. And what if the standard is not somebody on the news or somebody who we see down the street, but the very heart of God who loves every one of us. I can remember as a teenager, I wasn't living the life that I knew deep down I was intended for. I had this sense. I knew that was the case. I knew that I wasn't living as I was intended and created to live. But I can remember thinking to myself, I'm young. Everybody does stupid stuff when they're young. One day, I'll decide it's time to live the good life. And then I'll just flip this switch, and then I'll be the man that I'm supposed to be. And I can remember trying to flip that switch in my life and falling flat on my face. And I can remember trying to flip that switch on my own strength again and falling flat on my face. And I hurt many of the people who I loved most in the process. Life is not clearly headed for true happiness. Our dreams are not obviously headed for fulfillment. Not only, I think, because of the harsh world outside, but also, I think, if we're honest with ourselves, at times because of what's inside as well. And so what happens? Well, I think we stop having great expectations for life. We stop dreaming like children. We expect less. We hope for less. Ultimately, we settle for less. We start settling for mediocre friendships, for people who we can have a laugh with, but not people who really know us in a deep way. We start hoping for a decent job. We give up that great expectation, that great dream we had at some point to do something that we genuinely love. We convince ourselves that we really shouldn't expect a wonderful spouse or a healthy marriage. After all, that hasn't been our experience in other people that we've known. After all, the statistics tell against that. Maybe a great novel or an epic film, it brings us back to those great expectations, those childhood dreams from when we were 8 or whenever it was. But then we remember that true love is only in the movies. Here's the point I really want to make tonight, and I want to take a turn at this point. The point that I really want to make tonight is that I believe wholeheartedly that Jesus Christ is in the business of redeeming expectations. I believe his expectations for our lives, they look a lot more like our childhood idealism than like our adult cynicism. They look much more like what we once dreamed of than perhaps what we now begin to settle for. And here's why. When you decide to become a Christian, when you admit that you need God's help and you invite him into your life, the Bible says that God's Spirit comes to live inside of you, a powerful Spirit. In fact, it says it's the very same Spirit that rose Jesus from the dead. That's the sort of power that we're talking about. And I think it's just remarkable when you make the decision to live as a Christian, to experience the Spirit of Jesus coming to live inside of you and transforming you from the inside out so that you can live the life that you know deep down you were intended to live, the life that you long for, the life that you were created for. One of my favorite verses in the Bible says that instead of getting drunk on wine, instead we should be filled with the Spirit. You might think that's an odd choice for one of someone's favorite verses. But you see, when you're drunk on alcohol, I know no one in this room has had that experience, but when you're drunk on alcohol, you find yourself doing things that otherwise you would never do. You're more confident, you're funnier, you're a much better dancer. One time I was a teenager, before I was a Christian, I had gotten drunk at a friend's house, and I had this brilliant idea to run around the house with my shirt pulled up over my head. Seemed like, these are the sorts of ideas that you get. It seemed like such a good idea at the time. What my friends conveniently forgot to tell me was that my friend's parents were putting an in-ground pool in the backyard. So I go charging around the house. You can see kind of just enough through a T-shirt to make your way. I go charging around the house, and all they had done so far was build this massive mud pit in the backyard for the pool. And I just go, like one of those cartoons, I just go charging right off the side. The legs kept going in the air, bam, right down into the mud. Now there is a point. My point is that this drunken desire to go beyond oneself, to transcend oneself, I think it's actually a good desire. This desire for adventurous and heroic things. I think it's a good desire, and I think it's from God. It's connected to that childlike desire for greatness that I've been talking about. But drunkenness or drugs or promiscuous sex or pornography or the newest technological toy or the approval of others, whatever it is that we get our highs from, I think they're just terribly cheap imitations of the real thing. When you're filled with the Spirit of God, you again find yourself acting in ways that otherwise you couldn't, or in ways that otherwise you never would. You find yourself with an inexplicable love for the person that you've always found most annoying. You find yourself with courage and confidence in the very same situations that you know you always buckle in. You find yourself with patience and gentleness in the situations in which you always get angry and violent. You find yourself with peace and with a good night's sleep in the situations in which you're usually full of anxiety and stress. With joy where there was sadness, with peace where there was worry. Do you know that life? Becoming a Christian is not just a matter of believing some new things. Becoming a Christian is not just a matter of believing something different. It can be a matter of that. It is a matter of that, but that's not all it is. It's a matter of stepping into an empowering relationship with Jesus, with the God of the universe, that will give you the strength to live the life that you truly desire because it's the life that you were truly created for. In my own life, I truly and confidently believe that without God in my life, without His Spirit having come to live within me, I would be an unfaithful husband headed for a destroyed marriage. Before I made that decision to say yes to God and to say, I need your help, I never dated someone that I didn't cheat on. But from the time that I said yes to God, His Spirit came within me. He began to transform my heart. Yes, it took time. But He, in a very real and concrete and tangible and powerful way, began to transform my heart so that I could be a faithful husband, so that I could be a faithful son, so that I could be a faithful friend, so that Joe and I could have great confidence in our marriage. As a Christian, you find yourself with a strength beyond your own, a strength to be more of the person that you were created to be that person that you dreamed about being as a child. I wish I could describe to you in full the experience of being a Christian. I wish I could just say, here, come experience it for a couple days. I'd be so excited for anyone who isn't a Christian in this room to have that. One other way I can just begin to describe it, I don't know if you've ever had that feeling of doing what it felt like you were made to do. Just what you were made to do. For me, it's always been sports. Those times on the field where everything clicks and anxieties and worries fade away, and every moment, every second is just filled with significance and meaningfulness and purpose. Maybe for you it's music or art or something completely different than that. When every moment is filled with meaning, anxieties fade, you know you are just where you're supposed to be in that moment, doing exactly what you're supposed to do. Or maybe for you, it's not so much an activity, maybe it's more of a place. Maybe there's one place in the world where you feel completely like yourself, where you feel like you're not pretending, where you feel like you're perfectly at home. In Christianity, my experience and the experience of countless others that I've known has been that experience of doing what we were made to do, of being at home, that experience becomes not the exception, but it becomes the norm. Jesus invites that peace and that contentment to be a part of our everyday, that sense of purpose, that sense of significance, that sense of home. Not because things always go my way. Please hear me say that. That is not at all the case, and I know countless stories of people who became Christian and things went less their way. But because I know there is a God who loves me just the same, whether things are going my way or whether they're not. And because His Spirit is not only in a church building, it's not only on a mountaintop, but He's actually come to live within me and is with me day after day and second after second, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. As amazing as that is, I actually think it's only the beginning. Because Jesus promises that even though right now we live in a world that's full of a lot of suffering and brokenness and injustice, he says that's not the end of the story. He says that one day we can live in a world that will be good to us. He says that he's gone to prepare a place for us, a place where there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. He says that his Father's house, that God's house has many rooms, and he's gone to prepare a room for us. There's this relationality and intimacy of it that actually for all eternity we're going to live together in the same house. That is the true happiness that God desires for every one of us. When I was a kid, I used to think I could never die. I think Jesus says to me that I had it right way back then. The famous Christian speaker Billy Graham, he was once quoted as saying, "One day you will hear rumors that I had died. Do not believe them. They will not be true." What a blessing to be able to speak those words with confidence. What a blessing to be able to speak these words with confidence. These are the words of a dear friend and teammate of me and my colleagues named Nabil Qureshi, who we lost to cancer at the age of 33, I believe, this past year. And these are his words and the confidence that he had to the very end. He said, "If the resurrection of Jesus is true, then what that means for you is that if it comes to a point in your life where it seems like there is no hope, if it comes to a point in your life where it seems like even death is inevitable and there's no way to escape it, well, death is not the end. There's more. There's hope, no matter what." Nabil and his wife and their daughter, they lived in our apartment building in Oxford for 2 years, 2 floors directly below. And as I was preparing this talk for tonight, and I was thinking about that beautiful, wonderful promise of Jesus that he's gone to prepare a place for us, and that there are many rooms in his Father's house, I just found myself wondering, maybe Nabil and Michelle and I, maybe they'll live in the same wing of the house. Maybe they'll be directly below us, just 2 floors. What a blessing that would be. What a gift to know in your heart that you are not headed for death, but that you are headed for greater and greater life. I want that for every one of you. I believe that with God, our childhood optimism was correct, that perfect love is possible. In fact, you are already perfectly loved, that we can live forever, that there is no limit, that there is nothing to fear, that things will get better. I believe your God will be as big as your dreams and your expectations. If your expectations are low enough, then you can get away with being your own God. I did for a long time. If your expectations are to be well connected and to make a lot of money, then the city can be your God. If your expectations are to be rich, then money can be your God. If your expectations are immediate pleasure, then sex can be your God. But I think deep down, many of us sense that we were created for more than this. The Bible says that God has put eternity in the hearts of all people. He has set in our hearts that childlike desire to dream for greatness, to be part of something extraordinary. And I think the invitation to become a Christian is an invitation to raise expectations, to reclaim childhood dreams. The world tells us that it's important to set goals and have expectations that are in reach, that are realistic. The Christian claim is exactly opposite. We should only have goals and expectations that are way beyond our own reach, because there is a God who has really conquered sin and suffering and shame and death. And when we say yes to him, we step into a new life with him where nothing is impossible. The Bible speaks of God as the one who is able to do immeasurably more than all we could ever ask for or imagine. And then it says, "Therefore, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received." Jesus said it this way. He said, "I have come that you may have life and have it to the full." A life that is full of the fruits of the Spirit of God that have come to dwell within you. And the Bible speaks of those fruits not necessarily as monetary riches, but of riches that are much more significant than that. It speaks of love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. What if those were the things that were genuinely, truly overflowing from our hearts? How would life look different? What sort of peacefulness would we have about life? Could we reclaim those childhood dreams that we once had? I used to play soccer with a guy who said, he wasn't a Christian at the time actually. He became a Christian, but he was exploring it, and he was hearing a lot of what I've been saying tonight. And he said one day, he said to us, it seems like you become a Christian so that you can live the life. I think you become a Christian for a variety of reasons, but I think there was truth in that statement. You become a Christian so that you can live the life. Ask a Christian if life has been easy, and they will say no. Ask a Christian if life has turned out like they thought it would, and they will say definitely not. But ask a Christian if life has exceeded expectations, and I think that the vast majority of them will say absolutely. They'll tell you that it has been deeper and more meaningful than they ever could have imagined. I believe that God has a fantastic plan for every single one of you, for every one of your lives. And when we step into relationship with God, we step into that plan as well. And so I want to end by issuing a challenge to everyone in the room. If you're a Christian, my challenge is that your God will determine your expectations for life. So how big is your God? Is he big enough to deliver on great expectations in your life? And if so, then what extraordinarily great things are you trusting him for at the moment? And to all of you who have never decided to put your trust in Jesus, what are your expectations for life? How great are they? How great do you want them to be? And if you long for more in life, if you long for the fullness of life that I've been talking about, what kind of God will you need to come through on those kinds of expectations that perhaps deep down in our heart we know are true and good? I used to think to myself, I'm young, there's plenty of time, I can always say yes to God later. The problem is, you say that at 20, and all of a sudden you're 36, and all of a sudden you're 76, and the years have just slipped by, and you never said that yes. And over time, those childhood dreams, that childhood idealism, it just got chipped away and chipped away and chipped away until all that was left was adult cynicism. And all those dreams and all those expectations, you can't even remember what they were, and you become someone that you barely recognize. Life is short. There's a reality to that. And we could just try to distract ourselves from that reality. We could just play more Xbox. Or we could put our trust in Jesus and the fullness of life that he offers. I think that today is the best day to say yes to all of the fullness that is on offer, to that empowering relationship with Jesus, which is not only about just believing some new things, but it's about being given a strength to live the life that deep down you were created for. The beautiful thing about the Christian faith is that the way that you do that is very simple. Many other ways of saying the world would tell you that even if you wanted to make that decision tonight, you might have a long road ahead of even getting to the place where you're right with God and when you can be accepted by God, that you would need to start down here and see if you could start to do good things on your own strength, and maybe at some point you would get to the point where the good things outweighed the bad things, and then maybe God would be okay with you. Maybe God would accept you. Maybe then God would love you. That is not the Christian message. In fact, the Christian message is the exact opposite. Turn that on its head. The Christian God loved you before you were ever born, and there is absolutely nothing you could ever do, think, or say that would change that in any way. The Christian God's love for you is the love of a parent staring down at a newborn baby. That baby can't do anything to earn the parent's love, and the parent's love could not be more significant. Jesus talks about God's love as the love of a father whose son had taken his money and gone off and used it in terrible ways. Finally, he decides to turn back and come back to the Father. And it says the Father saw him far off on the horizon. He hadn't even come close yet. And he sees the Son far off on the horizon. And this Father, he just takes off running like an embarrassing fool. And he throws himself on the Son. And he kisses his neck. And he welcomes him home. And he gives him his own robe. And he gives him the family ring to say, you have the authority of the family again. He puts sandals on his feet. He says, kill our best animal. We're throwing the biggest party we've ever thrown. That is the heart of God. And because of that, he doesn't wait for you to try to work your way up to him. It's because of that love that he came down in the person of Jesus. And he lived a human life that he didn't have to live. And he suffered a human death that he didn't have to suffer. So that we could be right with him. So that we could be in relationship with him. So that we could know that love that he has for us. And that we might be prompted to say yes and return that love back to him. So that's the offer that's on the table. A God who's already done himself everything that's necessary. And he just waits like that Father to see if far off on the horizon you will just turn in his direction. And if you just turn in his direction, he will take off running and he will welcome you home. And he will put his spirit within you. And he will give you the power to live the life that deep down perhaps you know you were created for, both in this life and on into eternity. That's the incredible offer that's on the table. I said yes to that offer 15 years ago. My life was transformed. There were good things in my life before that, absolutely. But I live with a peace and a true happiness now that I never knew. And that is something I desire so badly for every one of you. So let me say a short prayer. It's a prayer that just very simply says to God that that's what I want to reaffirm tonight. That I want to turn in his direction. I don't want to rely on my own strength to live life. I want to ask him for help and ask for his strength, that he would come and empower me. And that I want to live life not on my own, but I want to live life side by side with him, in relationship with him, trusting him and following him. I'm going to say a simple prayer that reaffirms that in my own life. And if you want to say a prayer, maybe for the first time, that says that to God, you can do that right now just by echoing these words in your own heart as I pray them. Let's just pray a short prayer. Jesus, I want to thank you for that incredible gift and that incredible offer. I want to thank you for that sense that you've given every one of us, that you've created us in your image and you've given us that sense of eternity somewhere deep down in our hearts. And maybe circumstances, maybe different things in our life have tried to obscure it. But I think each one of us, somewhere deep down, knows that we were made for the fullness of life that you came to show us, the fullness of life that you desire to bring in our lives by your Spirit when your power comes to live within us. Jesus, I thank you so much for being a God who loves like no one ever loved. Even when we were turned away from you, that you ran after us. You didn't stay on your far-off heavenly throne. You came down. You were born vulnerably as a baby. You were spat on. You were mocked. You were insulted. You were strung up on a cross. You were beaten. And ultimately, you suffered death. You did that willingly. You died for us so that you could be near to us, so that you could be the one who took on the consequences of anything that's dark and wrong in our hearts. And so that ultimately we could be near to you. We could be in relationship with you. Thank you that you don't ask us to climb our way up to you. Thank you that you came down. You did all that's necessary, and you just ask us to say yes to you, to say, yes, I want to live your way, to say yes to that sense deep in our hearts of the eternity that we were made for. Jesus, I thank you that we can trust you. I thank you that you're worth following because of the love that you have for us and because of the way you've proven that love, even by being willing to give your life for us. And so tonight, I personally want to reaffirm that I'm sorry for the selfishness that so often was and that even so often still is in my heart. I desire your forgiveness. And God, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the gift of being able to say yes to you and live alongside you in friendship and peace. Thank you for the gift of being able to go about day by day with that sense of home and that sense of purpose. And finally, I want to say, please, will you continue to come into my life? Would you continue by your Spirit to live within me and transform me from the inside out so that I could be more and more the person that I've always known I was intended to be, that you decided I should be from the beginning of time. And God, I ask for that blessing in my life, but I ask for it in the lives of every person here as well. And we trust you for that. In Jesus' name, amen.